Hi, Father Hall here. Today I wanted to do a little brief explanation of amateur radio. So I am not only a priest, I am an amateur radio operator as well. So welcome to my office. You can see I have a picture of Pope Benedict XVI behind me. You know, he's not the current pope. The current pope is Pope Francis. But I keep a picture of Pope Benedict XVI in my office because I, first of all, like him. He's a really wonderful theologian, but also because he was elected pope on my birthday in the year 2003, and I happened to be in Rome at that time as a student studying. So I have a particular fondness for B16 there, Benedict XVI. You'll see in the background I have my toolbox, and I did a video on that a week ago. You'll see in my toolbox I have my QSL card. It's called a QSL card with my call sign on it, K0OLG. So I'll hold that up here. So there's my QSL card. So when I make a contact with somebody on one of my transceivers, especially if it's a long distance contact, I will send them that card, and they will send me one of their cards. And I'll give you an example of what some of those cards look like. Here's one I just got in the mail a couple days ago from W6PNY. W6PNY. This is Mac McCracken from Grand Forks, North Dakota. Big old buffalo there on his card. So we get them from all over the place. I've got one here from somebody in Louisiana. So card from Jim, whose contact I made from here to2 on one of my transceivers. So I'll explain my transceivers here. This is a 2 watt and 7 watt. So I can change the wattage by pushing this button here. It's 7 now. Now it's 2. When it's 2 watts, I run the power through this little brick here. It's called a power brick. So I get my radio down. And so I use this to amplify the power, and this amplifies it to 30 watts. So that brings it from 2 watts to 30 watts. But this is a 2 meter transceiver, very high frequency 2 meter transceiver. So that's they're called transceivers because they both transmit and receive a radio signal. So it'll transmit a radio signal and it'll receive a radio signal. This is an HF, a high frequency transceiver. So this is very high frequency, VHF, HF, high frequency radio transceiver. So this, I can contact people on 6 meters, which technically is very high frequency. Then we go to the 6 meters, 10 meters, then we get into the high frequency. So 6 meters, 10 meters, 12, 15, 17, 20, so on and so forth, 40, and finally 75, 80 meter transceiver. This one, the 2 meter band, does not bounce well off the atmosphere. You don't get good ground skip with the 2 meter band. It doesn't bend. Whereas with the HF frequencies, 10 meters, certainly 20 meters, 40 meters, you get some skip off the layers in the atmosphere, and you can get quite a long distance. I've contacted people in Brazil, and in the European countries, all over the world, pretty much with this one. Certainly within the United States. This transceiver here, so this is a 100 watt transceiver. This is 2 and 7 with the amplifier. I can make it 30 watts. This is a 100 watt transceiver, and then this other transceiver here again is a 2 meter transceiver, about 25 watts. This is just a power meter, so I can see how much power And I got a little power meter right here. It tells me how much power I have. So of my transceivers, my antennas, and my power source. So let's take a look at my antennas now. All right, you might have to use your imagination here a bit, but there is a long wire in the middle of that circle I made, the oblong circle there, if you will, in the white. There's a long, barely visible wire. That's my HF antenna. That is 102 feet long, the wire piece to it. It goes to a tree on one end of the parking lot, to the church building on the other, and actually through another tree there. And then the circle is where two ends join, those two wires join, and then they join and they are connected to a piece of what's called window line, and that's that green line that comes down there, runs parallel to the window line, that then hooks up to my transceiver. And what you're looking at here is my very high frequency and ultra high frequency, so VHF and UHF antenna. This one is on a mast. The blue line there is the about 40 feet high antenna mast that I have. It consists of mostly 1 inch, well, 1¼ inch steel conduit. On the bottom there's a green circle. You'll see there's a wood post that's concreted into the ground about 4 feet. So that's my antenna mast. It also has guy wires that you can't see. But way up on top there in the green rectangle is the antenna itself. So that's a tri-bander. UHF, ultra high frequency, VHF, very high frequency, and 6 meters. VHF, UHF is line of sight. So about as far as you can see, that's as far as that signal will transmit before you lose the curvature of the Earth. So if we want to see further, what do? We get higher up, right? It's the same with this antenna signal for the 2 meter band for VHF. You make a mast and you put the antenna higher. And so in a moment, we're going to open the repeater in Mankato and we're going to have a conversation with somebody. So my antenna being 40 feet off the ground and the repeater antenna in Mankato, that's 300 feet off the ground, certainly gives us quite an advantage. You can't see Mankato from St. James, but because of the elevation, the signal makes it from St. James to Mankato in a line of sight reality. Let's try to get somebody here on ham radio, on a ham radio frequency. Let's try. I'm in St. James now, and that is about 40 miles southwest of Mankato. And there's a repeater in Mankato that I can open with this transceiver. It is the 147.240 ham radio repeater. Owned and operated and kept up by the Mankato Area Ham Radio Club. Let's see if we can stir up any activity. And you'll notice how I call on the 2 meter band is different how I would call on another band. So I push my push to talk button, K0OLG. Let the repeater ID. And nobody's responding. There was somebody there a few minutes ago, and I was hoping maybe he was still hanging around. Let's try it one more time and just see if somebody responds. K0OLG. So you'll notice I'm saying my call sign, K0OLG. All right, so there's the guy on the other end. His call sign is K2KLN. I happen to know who he is. His name is Steve. Well, hello, Steve. How are you today?
Well, it's a pretty nice day. It's 65 and sun is mostly out, so I guess I'm enjoying it because it looks like the forecast is calling for some chilled weather here the next day or two.
Yeah, somebody was telling me a couple days ago that they refer to these cool days in May as the Iceman days. That every year we get these cooler days in May, and it's when apparently the Iceman comes, and so they call them the Iceman days. K0OLG.
K2KLN. I'm gonna make a quick stop here, but if you're gonna be around in about 5 minutes, I'll get right back to you. K2KLN.
K2KLN, K0OLG, standing by. So there was a little transmission on the 2-meter band with K2KLN, Steve up in Mankato. Let's try and see if we can make a contact on the 40-meter band. Let's try 7.236 megahertz on the 40-meter band. First, I'll see if somebody is there. Is this frequency open, please? K0OLG. I should tune my transceiver first. So I always see if the frequency is open. Give somebody a chance to respond if it's being used. Is this frequency in use right now? Kilo 0 Oscar Lima Golf. So you notice I push this lever down here with my thumb, this button down, and then I talk into it. When I let it up, then I can receive whoever may respond to my call. Is anybody using this frequency? Kilo 0 Oscar Lima Golf. So you notice I call out there with my call sign K0OLG, and I use the phonetic version of that often, Kilo 0 Oscar Lima Golf. That way they don't confuse S's and F's and N's and M's and those kinds of things. All right, doesn't look like anybody's using this frequency, so let's try to see if we can make a contact on 40 meters. CQ, 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 Kilo 0 Oscar Lima Golf, Kilo 0 Oscar Lima Golf, Kilo 0 Oscar Lima Golf, calling CQ, K0OLG, CQ, calling CQ and listening. And it takes a few tries usually. CQ, 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 Kilo 0 Oscar Lima Golf, Kilo 0 Oscar Lima Golf, Kilo 0 Oscar Lima Golf, calling CQ, K0OLG, calling CQ and listening. CQ, 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 Kilo 0 Oscar Lima Golf, Kilo 0 Oscar Lima Golf, Kilo 0 Oscar Lima Golf, calling CQ on 40 meters, K0OLG, calling CQ and listening. November Bravo 6 Oscar. This is Kilo 0 Oscar Lima Golf. My name is Tim, Tango India Mike, and I'm calling from St. James, Minnesota. The grid square here is Echo November 23. You are a solid 5959, over. Roger that, Dave. Roger that. Good audio too. I'm on 100 watts here. My transceiver is a Yaesu FT450D, 100 watt with a dipole, 80 through 10 meter dipole antenna, about 30 feet off the ground. So how's the weather over in West Point, Kentucky today? Over. Your transmission, your last transmission started out strong, but then it really dropped off. So I did get, though, that you're over-the-road truck driver. Good hard work there, keeping everybody supplied. Maybe we better wrap it up here and say 73. Thanks for the contact, Dave. K0OLG, clear. Anyway, that was a contact into Kentucky. So from Minnesota to Kentucky, not all that bad for two guys, two ham radio operators with 100 watt radios. So he mentioned he had a Kenwood, an older Kenwood transceiver. Mine's a Yaesu, and we're both operating on 100 watts. So we weren't using big fancy 1,000 watt amplifiers or anything like that. So what does this have to do with faith? What does this have to do with God? Why is a priest a ham radio operator, amateur radio operator? Well, quite frankly, I'm a ham radio operator for the same reason that I'm an astronomer. I like to have a sense of wonder. I like to play in God's creation. When I look at the stars in the sky and the nebula and the planets, I get a sense of wonder. Ham radio, when I can make a contact in Japan. There's another QSL card from a contact I made from somebody in Japan. And so I made a contact with him. His call sign is JE1LET. Looks like I made that contact with him on the 4th of February this year, the 4th of February. Good 5-9 solid contact there. Or this gentleman here from Slovenia, made a contact with him. His name is Miran Voncina from Chetkova, Čerkno, Slovenia. Right, so I made a contact with him on, looks like we made that contact on the 28th of January this year. So I can talk with people all over the world. That's wonderful. You know, we can be in contact with each other and communicate with each other. I can communicate on radio frequencies that I can't see, but I know they're there. It's all part of God's creation, and it's like our soul, right? Or our own spirit. We can't see our soul. We can't see our spirit. We can't see our eternal soul, but we know it's there. We can't see our thoughts, but we know they're there because we experience them. And communicating with people I can't see, but I know are there. I know are real. I couldn't see the guy in Japan. I couldn't see the guy in Mankato who I was talking to on this transceiver. I couldn't see the guy in Kentucky, Dave from Kentucky, who I was talking to on this transceiver just a moment ago. But I know he exists. When you think of prayer, it's communication with God. God communicates with us and we communicate with him. We can't see him. We can't necessarily hear him. We know he's there. But we speak to him and he speaks to us, speaks to our heart. So amateur radio, it looks kind of overly technical sometimes with its funny gadgets and machines, but very beautiful. And kind of like each one of us, we don't always look the part, but if we only knew how beautiful we are, and that we can see things about ourselves that speak to a reality, but there's much more to us that we can't see that speak to a wonderful reality of God's creation as well. Thank you, and God bless you.